Welcome everybody to this exciting new video. It's the modification of the iPhone 5 Black. It's a 32 gig model and we're putting them into a blinged out chassis. There's the back, there's the sides. It's bare, so we're going to build this from scratch. We already, from our disassembly video, we disassembled all the parts here, and then on our screw mat we have all of the components and our logic board right here. And so for this video, for this modification, we're going to need a few things, and we're actually going to be modifying the home button as well, putting out a blinged home button on here. We also have blinged out keys. This is new, probably later on if you're watching this video there might be keys. It might be ubiquitous, but right now this is one of the only places you can get it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through prep of the chassis and the frame assembly, and we're going to get that ready to go. And so the tools that you typically use for all of these type of modifications is you will need a flathead screwdriver, you will need a Phillips head screwdriver, you will need a pentalobe screwdriver, or T5 some people call it. Tongs are your friend. Always have some fine tip tongs. I also have some wider tip tongs and some, like little clamping type tongs as well, as for certain things. You don't have to have this one. Spudgers are really important to have. There's a metal spudger. We've already spudged everything out, so we're not going to really use this much. This particular is a plastic spudger. It helps to kind of put things back in place and also spudge them out. We're not going to be doing a lot of spudging right now because we've already spudged out all of our components here in this bin. So the first thing that I like to do is prepare my keys. If you can take a look at this, the keys have shims on the back of them. This is similar to, all the keys have, the 4, the 4S, they all have shims. Just because the hardness of the metal is different than the shim, so it won't allow the key itself to wear, just the shim does. Well, rather it doesn't, because it's harder. And then, so we have a power button that has one shim, and we have a volume that has 2 shims. If you're using the stock keys, then you don't need to do this step. But if you are using the blinged out keys, and if they do not have shims on them, because I'm going to go straight to prepping the buttons, and I'm going to swab those with alcohol and just hold this down with my spudger. Clean the contact points, because you don't want your adhesion to be lost. Remember, these are made in factories in dirty environments, and they're oily and whatnot. So let me clean that again because I just popped over. Alright, so now I'm going to grab a little bit of canned air, another handy dandy thing to have. You can get this at Office Max. And don't blow this around with your screw mat, because you'll blow your screws right off. Just a gentle stream of air evaporates the alcohol, blows off any hair. Clean this again. I like to keep these videos as real as possible, because anyone can edit and make everything pretty, but this is reality. So I'm going to put what used to be the power shim on the volume button, and oh my goodness, it is a perfect fit. That is wonderful. I am happy. So there you go. There you go, guys. You can use the same shims that we sell on our website on these keys. And I don't know why the keys didn't come with the shims. I'm going to complain to my suppliers as to why they, those guys, a lot of these guys make this stuff, but they don't mod it, so they don't even know, what it needs to have. They just kind of like, make it look like the part. Okay, so we are shimmed. Okay, we have our, what used to be volume shims are now, or rather what used to be power shims are now volume shims. So put that aside, and let's put on our, what used to be our volume shim is now our power shim. This is why these tongs are so fantastic to have. Before I had these, this was almost impossible. I mean, I literally, the first time I ever did this on iPhone 4, I spent probably an hour trying to get it on. Oh man, that was a perfect fit. Look at that, guys. So that guy is perfectly on there and done. Okay, wow, that is awesome. Just saved a bunch of time. I can reuse my old keys. Life is good. Alright, so we have our blinged out keys right here with our blinged out SIM tray. Gorgeous. Alright, so now I'm going to put those aside for now. Now I'm going to do the chassis prep. So there's a little cover here. It doesn't always come on where the camera is. It's a little protector. I'm just going to leave that on for a second because I'm going to use alcohol and clean the back areas, and then I'm going to give that a shot of canned air to evaporate and everything, get rid of any cotton fibers. There are special swabs that are lintless swabs that you can use that are nice. If you have those, use them. That's great. But if you're on a budget or just don't have them, this is fine. Okay, I want to get the sides, these bottoms, because we do make, the bottom here is a contact point. We do have parts that go on the bottom. Okay, so that is oil free. Give it a shot of canned air here. Okay, now let's not try to touch this too much. So I'm going to remove this cover, this little protector where the camera is. It's just looks like a little sticker, or backing rather. So we're ready to start assembling. So we're going to start in reverse order of the assembly video, and we're going to put these brackets back. And if you don't know which, if it's right side up or upside down, there's just a kind of a natural place that it falls back into. But, it'll just kind of tell you where it belongs. So I'm just going to kind of turn this way. Oops. I have those, another nice handy little tool. It's like a helping hand. It's like a little extra hand. It has little alligator clips on it. Those are really nice to have. Okay, and I'm not going to tighten it all the way down. And in case you didn't watch the disassembly video, I put everything on my screw mat. That's how I know where to grab parts and put it back. It's in its approximate location on the screw mat. There's two more brackets. Getting stubborn. Keep on popping it out of place. Okay, there's one. And I got that side in, so that's gonna stay now. Magnetic screwdrivers are really helpful. Okay, so the right brackets are done. Right there. Now we're going to do the lower left brackets because they're kind of benign parts. They don't really do anything other than just hold things in place. So we're going to put now the upper bracket, if you remember, was the volume control and the silencer, so we're not going to touch that yet. So just put that in loosely and then tighten the second one and then go back. Okay, so that's the lower left. Now that's a little bit shorter bracket. and that goes in the middle of the side. So now, you know, don't freak out as far as reassembly goes, because we're going to go in pretty much reverse order of the screw mat. So how it says right here on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to start with 6. So number 6 is, it shows the buzzer speaker unit, which is this right here. But if you remember from the disassembly, we did not remove this. We tried to keep all this one piece. So I'm going to stick the interface back on here. Now before I do that, there are a few things that have to go back on the chassis that we removed earlier. First of all, this is the easy. It's the sleeve, the middle sleeve, where the interface goes. We're going to pop that, and just kind of slides in to the center here. Just kind of have to play with it until it it's a tight fit, and it's like that on purpose. So that sleeve right there is in, so you can see the exterior of it right there. And then there is the microphone interface. This guy goes on the left side, and that might not be sticky anymore, or it might be. Yep. There's still a little bit of adhesive, so the microphone right there, the interface goes right there. And if it's not too sticky, it's okay, because the rubber you know, cover on the microphone that goes over it will kind of hold it in its place. Now there is the little insulator for the speaker. That's going to pop right here, and there's one side that's a little bit longer. The little side that's a little longer goes on the left. And they all just kind of like fit snug next to each other. Yeah, and this is still a little sticky, so it doesn't have to be super sticky, and please don't put glue on this. I mean, you can put a little bit on the edges, but there's holes here, so you don't want to block the sound path here. Okay, so they're in place, so fortunately, and this is also why I use alcohol, because it makes them really dry, so if there's any adhesive left at all, it'll stick right back on. There are 4 very lightweight washers rather, and we're going to put these 4 washers in the center of the 8-pin interface where that's going to go. And they just kind of have a little bit of a lip on them, so you can tell where the washers go. Apple builds things to make them pretty self-explanatory if you know what to look for. So these 4 washers are in their place, and now I'm going to carefully put my interface flex assembly back. So I'm going to kind of get this out of the ringer buzzer unit we left on, if you recall. And I'm going to, like the iPhone 4S, I'm going to put the center. Let's get this guy out of the way real quick, because we need to get access to underneath it. I'm going to pop the center into the sleeve below it, and you'll kind of hear a snap when that pops in place. And don't force it too much, just kind of wiggle it in place, and that's popped in. Alright? So moving this speaker unit out of the way a little bit, I'm going to push down this interface flex and get it to stick again. And then I'm going to put my microphone cap back on to the interface on the body. Just kind of give it a little push, and it's a little spongy rubbery piece. Pop right in place. Okay, so that's in. Put my headphone jack back in its place. And that's just kind of going to sit there. It doesn't really snap back in place or anything like the iPhone 4S does. So now I'm going to take my ringer speaker unit, and I'm going to put it back in its place, and it just kind of sits there too. And this little piece right here, it wraps over and I'm going to screw that down first just to hold that in place. So this guy right here, just kind of wrap it over. It'll just naturally fall back in place if it's the original. So we're going to screw that one back. It's to the left of the upper screw for the 8-pin connector. Loosely. Now the right screw. I'm going to get everything just kind of down in its place. Almost all the way. Now the left side, where the headphone jack goes. I might have to wiggle this a little bit just to make sure it lines up. That's loose. Alright. Now the center. Upper left. And, you know, there's no torque sequence or anything to this, but that's the order that I like to do it. And then the lower left screw. And make sure that this little ground connector is screwed in along with this screw to the right of the center. Alright, now let's tighten. Just going flip-flopping. And don't tighten too much, please. Once it's all the way in, it's done. Alright, so now we're, the screw mat says to do the battery cover next, but I don't want to put the battery in yet. If you recall, the battery does not have a screw, it has a cover on the iPhone 5. So we're going to start working on the upper part of the phone, and the first thing that we're going to put back in is this metal piece that will kind of hold your Wi-Fi wire in place, and that's this guy right here. And we're gonna pop that here, and it has a nice little slot for it. The lever side is down, and hopefully you didn't bend this thing too much when trying to pry it out. Sometimes it's stubborn. Okay, so that's in its place. Then I'm going to put its Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi antenna, this guy right here. I'm gonna align it with this left side screw, and it'll kind of align with where the glass is. It just goes into the upper left corner of where the glass is. There's a little indentation. So that is in its place. Now I'm going to take my wire, and where the bare part of the wire is, I'm going to put it back in where this lever is. Now you see this is making sense now. It kind of helps create the effect of an antenna. So that guy's in its place. I'm going to grab my volume key, and I'm going to start to prepare for reassembly of this volume silencer power assembly here. So, you know, that's going to go over there. So we're going to put all that back. So our volume keys back like that. These are our blinged out ones. And our silencer key, guys, remember, the red, which indicates it's in silent mode, always faces the LCD. Don't put it in upside down. Right here. It always faces the LCD. In the case of the 4S, we're working on the phone upside down. The LCD's downwards, so the red indicator goes downwards. But this is the opposite. The front is on this side, so the red indicator is up. So with the red indicator up, we're going to pop that in. And now I'm going to grab the flex assembly, flex cable, and I'm going to put in this first. This is where the switch for the silencer is. It goes behind it, and I'm going to pop this in place and then make sure that my key this is popped into this little hole here, and make sure that it goes back and forth. You couldn't have this out, you know, it can go in improperly. So if it's improperly put in, it won't switch back and forth, and then you're going to have to tear your whole phone out again. But one other way to make sure that this doesn't happen, if you can get it to go in, and everybody has their little tricks, is to put this on top of this switch, make sure that it's switching back and forth, and then these are small, so if you have fat fingers it's kind of hard. Okay, now it's sliding back and forth, the indicator is up, so I'm just going to hold this and pop it in its place. There. And it's always a good idea to check, you know. Okay, that's moving back and forth. Now the volume bracket goes behind the silencer bracket, so the silencer's on top of it. So there's the volume bracket, silencer's on top of it. So I'm going to screw in where they touch each other, where they meet, because I want to hold both of them in place. So grabbing my screw mat, I'm going to put this one in. Okay, so you can see right there, they're all in place now, but it's not done. So I'm going to put in the upper screw. It's a little bit longer for the the upper part of the silencer. And then I'm going to put in the next screw for my volume bracket. Okay, now we got to do a test. You hear the click sounds. Okay. Click, click, switch, switch. It should be smooth. The silencer key should be smooth. So now I'm going to put down my flex cable. I'm going to try to hopefully it has a little bit of stickiness to it. I'm going to use this part of my spudger. It's not that sticky. You can use a little bit of dab of silicone glue, but the vibrator motor will kind of hold it down anyway. But you know, we'll just put a small dab here, very, very small. Okay, and that's in. So now let's work on our power button. So I'm going to kind of put this down a little bit. Hopefully it'll stick. It's not really sticking that much. No big deal. Now the volume button has a little lever. The lever part is up toward the LCD. It's the opposite on the 4S. Since the LCD is downwards, the lever goes down. But since the LCD is up, the lever goes up. Kind of hold that in place. Remember that the power bracket goes in to the left side first, and then there's one screw that holds that. The 4S's and whatnot, they have two. So there's a little bar here. I'm going to kind of turn it upside down because this lever on the power keeps on wanting to pop down. So I'm going to put in this side into that little bar to kind of hook it. And if it falls out, that's just the name of the game, guys. It happens. So I'm holding this upside down so the power button doesn't keep falling out and getting in the way. And I'm going to kind of pop this into this lever here. I'm going to rotate it until it goes in. It looks like they didn't put the lever in. Okay, so we're going to put our power button in now, and the lever side is up. The lever always, there's a little lever here that always faces the LCD. So I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to turn it upside down just to make sure that this lever doesn't keep getting in the way, because it kind of wants to flop down. Okay, so now we're going to put the right side into where the rod goes on the mid frame. So we're going to pop this hook into the rod and then put that in place. And now we can screw our screw back. Click. That's a good thing. So that's in place. Our flex cables, just kind of push it down. That's okay. Doesn't stick too much. Alright, so now we're going to proceed with the rest. So we have our vibrator motor, which is right here. So we're going to put our vibrator motor back in the upper left corner. There's two contacts under here. And the vibrator motor just kind of pops in its own place. It's held down by 3 screws. So I'm going to do, I like to put the upper left screw in first. Because that's the part that has a little bit more contact. It kind of pushes up. And then I'll put in the top screw. Okay, and this little fat screw. So if you ever want to change your vibrator motor, those are the 3 screws that hold it down. Okay, so guys, we're making pretty good progress now. We have working volume switches, silencer key, working power button. Okay, so those flexes are back and in their appropriate spots. Now we're just about done. Okay, so before we put the logic board in, we have to put the SIM ejector mechanism back in. And the SIM ejector is that little swivelly thing that we had. Okay, so we have our SIM ejector. Now there's a little indentation. There's a hole. It lines up with that. That's also how you know where to put it. And then there's that mushroom looking screw was a special screw, and it's marked on the screw mat. So we're going to put that back. And this is something that's commonly overlooked, and you put in your SIM tray and it won't come out anymore. So there's our SIM ejector right there. So it kind of swivels, and we can kind of take our SIM pin and just kind of make sure that it's swiveling and that's working. So now we can put our logic board back in now that our SIM ejector is in. So if you recall, we have this wire for the Wi-Fi antenna. We're going to have to turn this upside down in order to reattach this to the bottom of the logic board. And there's a little nipple connector right there on the corner of the logic board. I'm going to try to post pictures of all this stuff as well. So now it's back in place right there. So I can turn this right side up again. Make sure that this flex is out of the way. Just the one plug. And make sure these line up. Camera's in. Okay, so our camera is in place. I can look on the other side. Yep, it's in place. Take our flash. Just kind of make sure it's tucked over here next to it nicely. And I'm just going to kind of manipulate the flex a little bit over this part of the power. So here comes my little trick. I'm going to take my SIM tray and I'm going to pop it in now. Alright, so that's in. This is a good time to test your SIM ejector as well. Yep, it works. So my SIM tray's back. The reason I did that is because I kind of want to hold this in place while I work on it so it doesn't wobble around. So I'm going to, because we moved these flexes out of the way in order to get to this screw, I'm going to put this center screw back, and I kind of do the same thing with the 4S as well. The reason I did that is because I want to put my flexes back. So before I do that, I'm going to continue putting the screws back, and I shouldn't have tightened this all the way. A little bit loose because this will wobble a little bit. And now I always start from the bottom and then go back to the top, and I flip-flop. Okay, so we're going to put our special screws back. There's a couple of them. One next to the bottom. There's one at the bottom and one next to that. They're indicated by kind of round holes in the logic board. So I'm going to put that guy back in. I'm going to put the next one here back in. And these special screws hold the, the plates and stuff above it. Okay, so that's in. So now since that screw is in, we can go ahead and we can reconnect these long flex cables. And they go, I'm going to put the one that's kind of angled, we're going to do that first. Actually, sorry. Actually, we're going to do the straight one first. So we put the straight one first, and the angle one. Okay? And if you want, you can pop in this flex and kind of put that back, because most of the screws are back in place. Now that these special screws are in place, we can put our interface cable back in place too. I like to use my fingers for these. Okay, so now it's starting to look more and more like the original. Take our GSM antenna and pop that back. You can use your fingers, or you can use your spudger, or you can use the tip of your tongs. I try not to use metal. I do it though. Okay, So that wire's back in place, so I don't know if you could see it earlier, but we have a special screw there, special screw there. We have our antenna there. We have these two flex cables right here, and we have this flex cable for the power and everything back over here as well. So now there was another small bracket next to the camera right here. I'm going to put that back, and there's a special screw that goes on the top and a regular screw that goes below it. And if you've been putting this stuff on your screw mat, you should have it all in place. So I'm going to take the bottom screw and put it back, and I'm going to tighten it down all the way. Like, it goes against usually what I say, but the reason for that is because the top part will want to wiggle all over the place and make it almost impossible for you to put the special screw back in, because it's kind of holding down that flex cable for the camera. Okay, so check, make sure our camera's in place. It is. Our flash is in place. It is. And if the camera's bowing or something, it's not in place. It should just kind of sit flat and flush. Alright, so we got our cameras in place. Now we have this little bracket here, and it's going to go back in place like that. Alright, so it's going to go like this, right here. Right like that. Show you guys. And the screw positions are indicated on the screw mat for these, so it should be pretty easy for you to find. And the next one's kind of a longer screw. Can't tell you how fantastic the screw mat is for these things. Saved me lots of mistakes. Okay, so that bracket is back. Now we have two screws right here at the top, indicated on the screw mat as well. So we have these two screws, and then we have this bracket right here we just put on. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to continue screwing in the logic board. So the center left screw. Quite a bit of screws holding this together. And then there is an upper left special screw, and you can tell the special screws because in the logic board they kind of have a round hole to kind of fit the special screw into it. So using our flathead, we're going to screw that down. And that's going to hold the LCD connectors. If you remember, there's 3 screws for that. Alright, so guys, we're just about done. There's one little thing we got to do, and I'm just going to clean this real quick. These frames don't come with battery stickers, so I have a battery sticker that I'm going to use, and it has like little pads on it as well. So we sell these battery stickers on our website as well. What I'm using is a little bit different because I'm out of stickers, so I'm just kind of using the old sticker and modifying a iPhone 4 sticker to fit this. Just kind of putting the sticky pads back onto the chassis just so the battery has something to stick to. Okay. Okay, so now we're ready to put our battery in its place. And once we have our battery in its place, we can put those two shields back over the battery. There's 3 shields should be left at this point. 2 for the battery and 1 for the LCD connector. So I'm going to put my battery connector in. Now be careful because it's live, but I'm not going to connect it quite yet because there's one more step we got to do. We have to bling out the home button. So let me just put this aside for a second. So here's our LCD. It has a regular home button down here, and it's pretty easy to change. This is probably one of the easiest things we can do. You can do it first, you can do it last. Just take these 2 screws out. There's a flex here that is glued to the LCD. So don't remove where these 2 contacts are. Don't pull it off accidentally. So we're just going to unscrew these. Put them aside right now. There's nothing on the screw mat for those. So just put them in its place and lift that up and move it out of the way. Don't remove that, please. Okay, this is your home button, your flex cable for your home. Don't take that out. So I'm just gonna kind of take this and kind of push it up, much like you remove a 4S gasket. Just be careful, it'll come off. I'm going to try to keep the adhesive as much as possible. If you're patient with it, it'll come off. Okay, so that's off, that aside. And I'm going to again use alcohol and clean the back of this button. And there's no direction to these like the 4G. You can put it in upside down or right side up, it's fine. So it's kind of stuck to itself a little bit here. Alright, so actually I'm going to put this sticky side up, and then I'm going to take my home button and I'm going to lay this in the center portion of it. So you just basically have a lip around it. So it's just plastic, you know, you got your rubber on the back, a lip. So I'm going to pop this in its place and it should hopefully stick again. Just have it straight. Okay, now I'm going to take my plastic spudger and just stick this back in its place. Move this flex out of the way. So it's not quite adhering, but that's okay because we're going to put this back over it and screw it down, which is kind of nice. I like this because you don't have all the problems with the old home buttons. Loosely. Tight. Okay, so now test. Make sure you're getting a click sound, you're feeling that. And I am. If you're not feeling anything, then you might have to shim it depending on the home button you have. So look how beautiful that is. Okay guys, so we are almost done with this baby. So now here's our iPhone 5, the moment of truth. We're going to put all this back together again. So at this point I'm going to have to put the battery back. I kind of have no choice because I can't put those shields on. I wish I could, you know, put that off the last second, but just don't push the power button. I'm not sure if they have a safety mechanism to prevent it from turning on with the LCDs out or not. I don't know that much yet about it, but I'm learning more and more every day about these new phones. So I'm going to put this one first, the top unit first, and then the bottom unit over it, or the bottom shield. And why am I doing that? Because one pops over the other. So I usually like to screw things where they meet first, just so that you don't have these flapping all over the place. So I'll take the center screw, put that back. Yeah, that does happen. You guys will have to forgive me if my energy level has dropped a little bit, because I have been modifying phones all day long and it's late and pretty tired. But I want everybody to learn about, or learn how to do this, because it just helps everybody if modifications grow as an industry. In China it's huge. It's starting to make its way to the United States. Okay, and the top one. Okay, tighten. Okay, so other than the LCD, we're done just about. So we're going to, in reverse order, put the LCD back. So there's going to be a short flex, a medium, and a longer one. So we obviously put the short one back first. Be a little bit careful in this process, because you could disconnect them, you know, just because the screen's kind of, there's not a lot of leeway, there's not a lot of give. These are pretty short cables. They're barely long enough just to open up and remove. So I like to use my fingers, because I like to feel it snap in place. And one of these kind of popped in place, or pop out of place already. So shortest first, medium second, longest last. And you kind of can't do it in the wrong order. I mean, you can try, but I don't think you'll succeed. So it's always the last one that wants to be stubborn. And again, don't use a lot of pressure on these. You don't want to screw up and bend one of your connectors. If it's not popping in place, it's because you're doing it wrong. Okay, that's why I like to use my fingers. Felt that. Okay, so these are in place now. Just kind of give it another check. Better safe than sorry. Okay, now this phone has never been on before. I probably should have powered it on before, but just to make sure it's a good phone. But I just assumed that a phone right out of Apple is good. Okay, so with the little brackets to the left, we're going to pop this cover back on. Just kind of slide the left side of the brackets in. And this is kind of, it's a little bit tricky because these cables are so short. If you pull too hard, you know, you'll get them to come out. But it sure does beat having to take out logic boards to change out LCDs, I'll tell you. Okay, so that's in. So I'm gonna put that down while I grab my screw. And the next one. This is the third screw. Looks like I need to get myself a new screwdriver because it's not really magnetic anymore. Okay, that's in. That's what it looks like right there. So now we're going to put the top side in first, just like we took it out. Make sure that that's in there. And we're just going to kind of put it back and look at that. A beautiful sight. At this point it's pretty safe for it to power on. Now before I button this thing up, I'm just going to give it a quick testing. Okay, so it's responding. Just activate this iPhone. Okay, it's wanting a SIM card. This happens to be a Verizon, but it works. I actually recommend getting the Verizon version because it works on more 4G networks, LTE networks around the world than any other. So there you go. Okay, beautiful. So now we can kind of see if our, okay, there's our volume up, volume down is working, power, sound works. Okay, and our home button. Actually, the home button has to make contact with the bottom in order for it to work, so let's go ahead and put this in. And some home buttons, they will work fine just out of the box. Others don't. The metal ones have a little round spot. The volume control shim, the little small round ones, that will work in the center of the back of the home button. So, you know, mine wasn't really clicking as well as I liked, so what I did is I just popped in this in the center of the back of the home, and you really don't know until you just put it together. But I popped it into the back of the home button, and it worked fine. And it's pretty easy. You just the back of the metal home button has a little dimple, and you just pop this little shim in there in the center, and you get this nice strong click sound. So that's all you got to do for that. So now we're gonna just finish up by putting in our pentalobe screws on the bottom. And we're completely done with this phone. And there you go, guys. Beautiful blinged out modification, matching home button to matches the sides. And if you have any questions, email sales@baremods.com, BAREMODS. Information is on our YouTube page as well. And check out our website. We have all parts, we have tools, we have everything that you need to either get started or continue your career as a professional modder. And please make sure to subscribe to our channel, and we will send out new videos on a regular basis. Appreciate you tuning in. Take care.